friends. You are tuned into the Mind of an Entrepreneur show, where we discuss mental strategies for helping you to navigate the world of business. And generally, we are doing our series on Black Muslim businesses, but today is going to be a little bit different. We're going to do a little bit of a different show. So you're going to see me toggling back and forth between two cameras because I had the live set up with you all today, and then I have this women's organization that wants me to talk about a particular subject that I think is, apropos for the two of both platforms, I would say. So you'll see me facing this way, but I'm not dissing y'all. Okay, so come on in the room. We're getting set up and we're going to have a conversation. What we're going to talk about today is the importance of do for self, but I want to do it in a little bit of a deeper way to help you all really truly understand how important our culture is to the economic structure of the American economy. And I know a lot of times we don't think about those kind of things, but we're going to talk about them a little bit today. So while we're waiting for people to come into the room, I see Brother Jamil, assalamu alaikum. Brother Leonard, assalamu alaikum. Love some you, assalamu alaikum. Brother Leonard X Dawson. Okay, yep, I see you. Brother Jamil. Nubia La Flo. All right, so come on in the room. Sister Alita, assalamu alaikum. As I mentioned, we're doing a double taping today. We're taping for a women's group where I just finished a forum about the importance of the Black culture to the American economy. I'm going to touch on that a little bit on the live, but I didn't want to cancel on y'all. So that's why y'all see me toggling back and forth. But give me a thumbs up in the chat if everything sounds okay to you all. And I'm going to play this quick video because I made this actual video and the audio for the Elijah Muhammad House. And then I started thinking about how appropriate it is for us and what we are doing here on the Mind of an Entrepreneur show. So just listen to these words. Thank you to my audience. You're welcome.
You belong to yourself. You're an independent people, created from the nation of free people. You don't need to go nowhere but to yourself.
So the challenge is an education that enlivens us to do business. Business is the activity of life itself.
Put that in the chat. Business is the activity of life itself. Y'all can put that in your chat too.
Ability to attract out of this material earth what it needs to perpetuate its species.
It's so incredibly powerful because here's the deal. I don't know if we realize how important we are from a Black cultural standpoint to the American economy. You see, our cultural trends get pulled over into pop culture, and the influx of dollars that our cultural trend creates helps to absorb the decline of the broader economy. Here's what I mean. Let me give you an example. Take the automotive industry. Think about what we are driving. Whatever we're doing that's hot, those are the cars that get made. The colors that we like, those are the colors that are produced. There's a whole supply chain around the production of automobiles that are responding to the demand created by the trend in Black culture. Okay? Think about healthcare. If you don't get diabetes, if you don't get high blood pressure, if you don't get cancer, we're the sickest people on the planet. So if those things don't happen to us, then guess what? The healthcare industry falls. So there's an entire healthcare ecosystem that is built based upon our illnesses, okay, that contributes to the American gross national product, if you will. Then you got music, media, entertainment. What movies are we watching? What music are we listening to? What's hot? That's kind of the way that we communicate our culture to the world. So those songs, those movies that we find hot become the catalyst for the creation of pop culture that is then monetized and contributes to the American economy. Let's take alcohol. If you ain't drinking Ciroc, if you ain't drinking Henny, whatever you drinking or whatever you're not drinking has a direct effect on the alcohol that is sold in the United States of America and around the world. Because I've been in other countries and I've seen them trying to drink like y'all drink. So if we decide that we're on to a certain type of drink, then guess what? That's what gets produced. The whole supply chain gets enhanced by the uptick in our cultural trends. Again, contributing to the American economy. Think about jewelry. There's clothing. I can go on and on and on into every industry because for the most part, were it not for our cultural trends, those sales, that supply chain, those inventory levels would remain relatively stagnant. But it's because of us that they can find those upticks in the charts and make money. And then here we go again, we invent and we give things away. So that's why it's important that we preserve our culture, that we support our culture, and that we begin to own and monetize our culture. Why? Because it's time for us to get in front of some of those checks. Here we are driving an entire world economy just from our style, from our swag, from our inventions. Our trauma creates certain culture that becomes pop culture that drives an entire economy, and we don't get a dime off of it. You see? So we said we were going to talk today, and in my speaking with the women's group that we've been talking to all day this morning is the importance of doing for self. And they're putting things in the chat, so I'm looking at you guys' chat and theirs, so forgive me for toggling. The term do for self in the black, it's something that's been in the black cultural vernacular for years. It's like word is bond. I did an entire Mind of an Entrepreneur show on the principle and origin of the phrase word is bond. You can click the link in the bio if you're on Instagram and go check out my past episodes of the Mind of an Entrepreneur show. You'll see me talking about word is bond as a principle for us as conscious entrepreneurs, but the origin of the phrase word is bond. So like the popular phrase word is bond, do for self is part of an instructional guidance taught to us by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. In fact, his statement was this: the black man and woman must get up and do something for themselves or suffer the consequences. Yes, I will repeat it. The black man or woman must get up and do something for themselves or suffer the consequences. What does that mean? What does that mean spiritually? What does it mean socially? What does it mean economically? What does it mean culturally? Spiritually, I like to think of doing for self similarly to the safety instructions we get from the flight attendants when we travel. When you fly on an airline, the flight attendant instructs you to put your mask on first before helping others. Why is this an important rule for ensuring survival? Because if you run out of oxygen yourself, you can't help no one else with their oxygen mask. Or, put more simply, if you die, you can't help anyone else. Put that in the chat. If you die, both of y'all put that in the chat. If you die, you can't help nobody else. I think we all get that, or at least we should. Self-improvement is the basis of community development. And we are taught that in the Nation of Islam by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He developed an entire series of study guides on this very subject with various sub-subjects to help us on the road towards self-improvement. And any good success coach, we've been listening to success coaches for years. They'll tell you that an increase in wealth and your ability to maintain wealth is directly tied to personal development. I'm going to say that again. Your ability to attain wealth is directly tied to how well you improve yourself. Put that in the chat. Self-improvement is directly tied to wealth improvement. Okay? So doing for self is critical to our overall success. How many of you knew that Islam was spread through commerce? How many of you all knew that Islam was spread through commerce? Through the establishment of these trade routes that ran from Africa, Asia, and to Europe, a way of life, a way of thinking was established. And even to what later became known as the Americas, and we're going to get into that. We now know that King Mansa Abubakari discovered what became known as the Americas in 1311, 180 years before Columbus. He is said to have given up his throne to travel to the Americas to participate in trade and commerce. So we're gonna have a little history lesson here. And I want both of y'all to write his name in the chat. We're going to speak his name today. King Mansa Abubakari. King Mansa, M-A-N-S-A, I'm sorry, King Mansa Abubakari. Okay? I'm so intrigued by King Mansa Abubakari. It's important that you know that the instructions given to black people in America by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad are rooted in ancient psychology, expertly designed for you and I. And doing for self is not some foreign concept that is difficult for you and I to do. In fact, it is easy for us to do because it is an activity that is coded in our DNA. And with strong spiritual guidance and support from the messenger himself, we are destined for success. And I know many of you that are on here who are not members of the Nation of Islam, you don't really know the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad very well. And one of my missions is to help you all to know him as well as his chief student, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, in a way that's different from what you may have been taught in the media. And I think this is important. Just like we probably have never been taught about King Mansa Abubakari, but we're going to learn about him today. Okay. But he was said to have given up his throne to participate in trade and commerce here in the Americas and to contribute to the understanding of the New World almost 200 years before Columbus. And thank you for those of you who are on Instagram for keeping the chat going. I'm toggling two platforms here, so understand that I'm not dissing y'all and I'm not dissing y'all over here. I'm just talking to both of you all. But we're going to have a little history lesson. I encourage you to read this book, They Came Before Columbus, written by Ivan Van Sertima. Okay, I'm also going to reference a book by the renowned Egyptian scholar. His name is Ibn Fadi al-Umari, and he wrote this in 1342. So those are the two books I'm going to reference when we talk about the purpose of doing for self and the power demonstrated by King Mansa Abubakari. Okay? Because I want you to see the legacy of your brilliant mind so that when you feel lazy or insecure about planning a business or about putting a business together, you will be reminded that you have done this before. Okay? And here's some information about one of my favorite historical figures, King Mansa Abubakari. Now, check this out. 2 large journeys across the Atlantic Ocean preceding Columbus were pioneered by Mansa King Abubakari the second. He was the second. The general conception was, at the time, the Malian Empire that the end of the world was at the end of the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, that was the rumor that was being spread around, and the delusion of thought that originated in Europe, that the end of the earth or the world was on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. And King Abubakari was far from convinced. He was determined to disprove this theory. He also thought that the other side of the Atlantic Ocean could be Mecca's sea route, which I find interesting. He was so determined that the other side of the Atlantic Ocean was not the end of the world that I often think that he must have been tuning into some people on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, because he went all out to prove, yes, thank you, all out. He went all out to prove that this was not the case. He first sent 200 ships in search of information. Let me get these numbers right. He first sent 200 ships in search of information. Their obligation was to sail across the Atlantic in order to find out what was beyond. It was documented that just one of the ships returned. When he saw the other ships vanish into the seas, his captain claimed to have turned around. King Abubakari wasn't convinced by the testimony of his captain. This further intensified his desire to find out what was lying on the other side of the ocean. My guess is that he then went in and started to do more research and figure out, okay, what happened to my ships? And then what can we do to make sure that when I launch this again, I don't lose those ships again? Because he didn't believe his captain. In King Abubakari's time, let me just make sure we know this, that Mali was a center of excellence in the 13th century. While it reached its height after its age when Timbuktu had the second oldest university at that time, actually more students than New York University, the University of New York. That's what the study in one of the books I read said. They had more students than University of New York. In Timbuktu, there were courses like mathematics, geography, history, astronomy, chemistry, and Islamic studies that actually flourished. And Mali was also a trading center, an exact place to meet anyone who made the world spin, they said. So the world was spinning, and if you wanted to know who's who and to meet with top scholars, you had to do that in Mali. And Abubakari designed ships off the coast of Senegambia with the assistance of shipbuilders from Egypt and Mali. And this part is fascinating to me. In 1311, King Abubakari abdicated or gave up his throne to Mansa Musa. Abubakari gathered. Then, after he gave up his throne, he then gathered the finest men, spiritual teachers, doctors, sailors, and navigators with 1,000 of his ships. The first time he sent 200 ships out, he lost 199. After his study, after his research, so dedicated that he abdicated or gave up his throne, he now sent 1,000 of his own ships out. And every ship had attached to it a supply ship, making it a total of 2,000 ships. Put that in the chat, 2,000 ships. Put that in your chat too, 2,000 ships. Imagine that. Imagine organizing 2,000 ships. Listen, every business component you have ever learned was utilized, like marketing, accounting, human resources, project management, engineering, culinary arts, hospitality, you name it. I'm on with a group of students and they are in college and you're taking these classes. So imagine sending out 2,000 ships and the mindset that it took to pull all that together, and the business and organizational skills it took to pull all that together. And there had to be some entertainment, and there most likely were prayer services as well. In order to last his team for 2 years, the other 1,000 ships were filled with food, medicine, fruit, drinks. Abubakari was thought to have arrived in the Americas at the other end of the Atlantic around 1311 or 1312. And as the Malians renamed places after themselves, Evidence of the Malian expedition can be noted in the names given to places like in Haiti. You got Mandingo Port, Mandinga Bay, and Sierra de Mali. Those are just a few examples. Now remember, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad learned the measurements of the earth and the water and the weather from Master Fard Muhammad. He gave us some of that information in our lessons. Many of us wonder why we needed to know this. And I talked to you all as a group about that a little bit earlier. But what did Abu Bakari know about the ocean and the earth? How could this journey happen in Abu Bakari's time? Based on what we've been taught historically, it seemed like it would be impossible. Abu Bakari knew that the Atlantic Ocean was controlled from a scientific point of view by two currents, which typically remained the same regardless of month or season. Okay, two currents. These are the Canary Current and the Guinea Current. The Canary Current and the Guinea Current. Okay, they both have currents that are so strong that they're strong enough to drag a ship from the West African coast to the Americas. You see signs of a Negroid presence in the Americas at the end of these currents. 200 years after Abu Bakari did this, Columbus would be accused of using similar knowledge of the currents of the Atlantic to sail across to the Americas. This could only have been possible with the assistance of someone who was familiar with the navigation process. Maybe somebody who went to a university in Mali, maybe somebody who accompanied an expedition and passed the information down. But he was said to have with him an African whose name was Pedro Alonso Nino. Pedro Alonso Nino, who helped him navigate the Atlantic. The fact that Columbus reported seeing black people in America has to be made clear. He also documented seeing mosque-like buildings. The Malians were Muslims, and there is also a chance that Malians may have erected these mosques. Columbus also reported seeing a ship loaded with goods just leaving the Guinean coast and heading toward America right before he left. Now, who's to say that the people they found here in the Americas weren't also Muslims? We just didn't have that title back then. But who's to say that those mosque-like structures weren't already here? And then they built others. You see, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has taught us that business is the activity of life. So the activity of life was used to connect Africa to the Americas, organizing these massive trade journeys. They applied scientific knowledge and had to establish camaraderie, unity, and understanding between cultures. That's right. So by doing business together, people can get to know one another and to learn from one another. Cultures can be shared and expressed. This is why doing for self is so important. Master Fard Muhammad, the founder of the Nation of Islam, entered our lives by going door to door as a silk peddler. The activity of business was a means of introduction. Many of us reject the importance of business because when we think of business, we think about a master, slave, or a dominant or subordinate type of relationship. And those of you here in the women's group, we talked about that earlier today. And it's difficult for us to find any level of spirituality or even to find Allah in that type of arrangement. But when we think of business as the activity of life where people of consciousness can come together to solve problems and introduce much needed goods and services into our communities, it makes a lot more sense. Business in one form or another is important to the ongoing concern of every movement, every business, every family, every government, every person. We just have to elevate the way that we do business and the way that we treat one another in business. When a culture is financially extinct. Listen to this. Type in your chats, financially extinct. When a culture is financially extinct, it is only a matter of time before the entire culture itself becomes extinct. Let me say that again. When a culture becomes financially extinct, it's only a matter of time before the culture itself and the people connected to the culture become extinct. So, the wise guidance of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was that the black man and woman must get up and do something for ourselves or face the consequences. Put that in your chat. Get up and do something for yourself or face the consequences. There are many consequences, but one of them is our extinction as a culture. Think about that. You see, when you are forced to adapt to a culture that is not your own, and the metric that determines how much money you make is tied to how well you deviate from your own culture, follow instructions, and adopt someone else's culture, then you are forced to neglect and ultimately forget your own culture and run the risk of your own culture becoming extinct. See, if you got to get up every day and go downtown and go into a work environment that does not respect your culture, tells you to dress a certain way, tells you to talk a certain way, tells you to be a certain way, basically rewards you for throwing your own culture away, then pretty soon you're going to forget about your culture. And that is what we're talking about here today. Preservation matters. We must own and monetize our own culture. Here's the other side of that coin, though. Since self-improvement and wealth development and wealth maintenance are closely aligned, by giving us the instruction to do for self, he was also working to establish a new culture, a new way of being, rooted in the supreme principles that he teaches us. See, doing for self is an essential part of economic development. The pace of economic development and industrial progress is a reflection of any economy. Therefore, doing for self from an economical standpoint is the fundamental basis for industrialization, economic development, and the survival of our culture. In all types of economies, the role of those doing for self or the entrepreneurs is a part of the dynamic process of creating wealth and innovation that have a bearing on the well-being of both the individual and the community. That's how the cultural is sustained, because we can now financially protect the culture. If we don't have any money, and even if we have money and we're sitting on it and we're not putting in innovation and things in place to protect our culture, then our culture will get sucked up into a larger, more powerful culture, and we will become extinct. Doing for self provides civilizations with a huge amount of products and services and helps in promoting social welfare. Those that do for self, or the entrepreneurs of a community, enhance the overall progress of civilization and prosperity. They help to establish and to advance the economy and this society. You're going to be hard pressed to tell people that what you're teaching is the truth if you're not finding a way to sustain and maintain and monetize your culture. See, doing for self is not just hustling. It's not just securing the bag or getting the coin. It's the key to the overall advancement of a culture and the solution to problems that plague our community through the introduction of much needed goods and services and the establishment of trade with other communities and cultures. We must get up and do something for ourselves or suffer the consequences. At the end of the day, we have no choice. And so the wise guidance given to us by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is something that is so important that we must follow it, but we must go deeper than just the hustle, deeper than our sales calls, deeper than going door to door, deeper deeper, deeper. We got to go for the deeper meaning, because through us doing business and doing business with one another and cultures meeting and respecting one another, we can get to know each other. We can preserve our cultures. If you come from a particular culture and I come from a particular culture and we meet and do business together and respect one another, I'm going to be more apt to help you preserve your culture and vice versa. That's if we're really conscious entrepreneurs. And it's just something I wanted to talk to us about today. That's why things like the project, the renovation and restoration of the former home of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is so critical and so important. So critical and so important. That's the reason why we're saying we are going to get this done through cooperative economics, by matching donations, by purchasing coins, by preserving the history, preserving the legacy. We're so caught up in our own competition and our own desire to meet the metrics of the world that we hate on each other, we stop each other. But, you know, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that we don't pay no attention to people who hate on us. What we do is we continue to pray for more and more success. And that's what I'm telling you all, and students who are listening to me here from the women's organization. There was a lot of talk this morning about haterism and people being jealous of you and people blocking you and not sharing. And listen, you can't do anything about them. You can only do two things. You can make sure you don't become a hater. And if you listen to our last Saturday morning Sajdah coffee talk, which you can get on my YouTube channel. It's the Sajdah Wendy Muhammad YouTube channel. If you all are on Instagram, there's a link in the bio. If you're not, you can just search Sajdah Wendy Muhammad YouTube channel. And we talked about how to repel haterism and how to not become a hater ourselves. We dug into it. So the only thing you can do is not become a hater and pray for more goodness and more wealth so that you continue to be blessed over and over and over again. So I decided to do both of these platforms today, and I decided not to have a guest on because sometimes it's important that we stop for a minute, because we hear these things, do for self, word is bond. When our culture gets morphed into pop culture, some of the significance of the actual phrases and the cultural nuances get lost. They get lost in that transference. And they get lost for a reason, because the idea is to take the trend that we create, the upward momentum of the trend, and morph it into a bigger economy, a popular culture, so that it cushions the downfall of that particular culture or economy, right? So you got this new stuff that's created by us that's making the charts go up, and then you got the stagnation of the existing platforms that are making it go down, and at some point you got people making money on the upside and the downside. And you heard me talk about at the beginning of the talk, and I want you to think about how you impact every single industry in the American economy just with the culture that is created from our trauma. This is why it's important that we control and monetize our culture. We must support independent projects like the renovation and restoration of the former home of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Support us, make a donation, buy a coin. Why is that important? Because everything that happens in a capitalistic society has a downstream effect. There's an entire supply chain that is impacted, jobs creation. And everybody's making money off of how we're trending, but us. Everybody but us. If we popularize wearing head wraps, all of a sudden the sale of head wraps will go up, material costs will go up, labor to sew the head wraps will go up, instructional videos on how to tie up the head wraps will go up. There'll be a whole little ecosystem around just one trend. One trend. You take an artist that has a song or a movie that goes viral, and almost an entire industry is impacted by that one trend. That is how powerful you and I are. So we make up slangs. We all got funny people in our family. We make up words. My brother been making up words for years. My brother was E40, for years, just making up stuff when we were little. Well, those things you hear now, things that you heard popular rappers like E40 saying, that are now in pop culture. And then once they say, oh, that's old school, we don't say swag no more, or we don't say for shizzle no more. We don't say that no more. You know what you and I do? We make up something else. We come up with something else. And we're so creative, we don't even have to sit down and come up with it. It's just something that's born out of who we are. And these industries take it, they snatch it out of the air, they apply it to their products and service. Automotives, cars, healthcare, music, movies, alcohol, clothing, jewelry, all become rich because they just snatch our cultural nuances right out of the air. Well, it's time for us to get in front of some of that money. We may not have the complete distribution to be able to distribute things the way the automotive industry or the healthcare industry is, but we can get in front of some of that money. We can get in front of some of those checks. And that's what I'm encouraging us to do. So we have to get up and do something for ourselves. We have to create an ecosystem. We have to focus on one another. We have to think about one another. We have to think about how we're going to do business with one another. So you start with your community. If your community is the Black Muslim community, and then you go to the other 5 billion people who are of our Black nation around the world, and we begin to support and get in front of some of these dollars. That will also keep people from King Mansa Abubakari from being written out of history, because you and I are going to write it down and pass it on to our children. Too many of us die with knowledge and history right there in our brains, and it just goes right into the ground with us. We never know anything about it. We're not spiritual enough. We're not tuning in. We don't know. But I guarantee you that when you start to study and you start to name your products and services after historical figures in your family and after historical figures, period, and you start to create commemorative items that can get passed down through generation, even if they come and throw away all our books, somebody will pick up this Elijah coin and say, what is Sajdah house? And what is the Elijah Muhammad house? And who is Elijah Muhammad? And why is it 24 stars around his head? And why they say he lives? Somebody will ask the question because this artifact was left behind. So with that, we're going to end a little bit early because I got 2 broadcasts. I got 1 broadcast that needs to end now. But as we go out, let me play that clip for you again. That's our opening and our closing. And I want you to listen to that and think about that. Put sajdahhouse.com in the chat for me, please, somebody, in both chats. The discount code is HEM4847. Gifts matter. So this year, instead of giving away garbage, give away something historical. Give a child a commemorative Elijah coin. See, when I was growing up, we used to get bonds for Christmas. We used to get typewriters and calculators for Christmas. We didn't get a lot of toys. Maybe a bicycle. But give it away. Sajdahhouse.com. SAJDAHHOUSE. Thank you, Brother Juan Carlos. And the discount code. Give a gift that matters. So we're going to go out with this incredible, and I won't talk over it. I'm going to be quiet because I really want y'all to hear this and isolate your thinking into what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan are saying. So thank you all for watching, and we're going to go out with this clip.
You belong to yourself. You're an independent people, created from the nation of free people. You don't need to go nowhere but to yourself. That's right.
So the challenge is an education that enlivens us to do business. Business is the activity of life itself. Every creature is born with the inherent ability to attract out of this material earth what it needs to perpetuate its species.
He said, extract out of this earth what it needs to perpetuate its species. Preservation matters. Okay? Let's begin to do for self so that we can extract out of this earth what will perpetuate us as a people. And so with that, if you want to go back and listen to this again, thank you for bearing with me as I toggle back and forth. I know I usually give my Instagram people a little bit more attention. Inshallah, we'll get this posted so you can take a look at it. Peace and blessings, family. Stay close to social media. I'll let you know what's up. Look, listen, click the link in the bio, y'all. Make sure that you are attending the Mind of an Entrepreneur manifestation party on New Year's Eve from 7 to 10 p.m. There's no better way to spend your New Year's Eve than learning about manifestation, setting goals, and putting your mind together. And then you can party afterwards. That's why we ended it at 10. 7 to 10, we're going to focus on our goals. Then 10 on, you can go party or do whatever it is that you want to do. So click the link in the bio. That's up there too. Get registered today because I don't want y'all to get left out. Peace and blessings, family. Thank you.